Hello everybody, my name is Nathan, and I am the man with a cartoon obsession. Over the years, I've come to accept the fact that I am a softie. I've tried to deny it so many times, but I'm finally admitting it outright. I am a softie. Although, it's a little odd. When tragic events happen in life, I usually don't break down into tears, and if I do, it doesn't last long. When I'm listening to music or watching a movie or show, however, sometimes it just triggers a reaction and I lose all control of my emotions. I'm not going to try to explain it psychologically because even I'm not entirely sure what the cause is, but I should clarify that it doesn't happen all the time and it's not something that I think should be concerning. However, it has led to me crying while watching many works of animation, and I don't mind sharing what some of those are with you all. I know I have a monotone voice and my delivery is usually deadpan, so I can come off as robotic. I wanted to think of a way to show my human side and maybe open up a little more. Therefore, I came up with this idea. 5 animated works that made me cry. The only rule is that I had to have cried while watching something, whether it be a cartoon, anime, a specific episode, an animated movie, whatever it may be. When I say cry, I mean cry, not just get a little teary-eyed. Also, I should specify that this is just a list, not a top 5. There won't be any rankings. And for the sake of courtesy, I'll put in a spoiler alert just in case I give away too many details on something you may not have seen. Without any further ado, let's talk about 5 animated works that made me cry. Elfin Lead. I wanted to get the obvious one out of the way first. I say obvious because I've already reviewed Elfin Lead, stated that it's my favorite anime, and stated that it still brings me to tears no matter how many times I've seen it. What I didn't mention though, was the first 2 times I watched it, I didn't cry at all. It wasn't until my 3rd viewing that it ended up causing me to have that type of reaction. It's hard to narrow it down to one event, as the whole anime is just so tragic. Lucy's backstory, which involves kids picking on her because of her horns, and even brutally killing a dog that was her best friend, plus her whole relationship with Koda afterwards. Not only that, but there's also Nana's relationship with Chief Kurama, watching her get ripped apart piece by piece twice, Kurama's touching reconciliation with his biological daughter, Mayu's backstory with her abusive stepfather. I could go on, but you get the point. There's a lot that goes on in this series, and I cannot stress enough that it's not for the faint of heart. Even the more strong-willed people may not be able to handle this show. The second time I watched Elfin Lead, I watched it with a friend of mine, and he was in tears by the end. It's just so easy to feel for these characters and the struggles they have to endure. I couldn't imagine being put in some of these situations, such as being the one to tell parents that their children have to be taken from them and ultimately be killed, like Kurama had to. All in all, Elfin Lead is a wild, emotional ride, and it is tough to get through at times, but I still love the series to death.
Those days I spent with you, they were the only good days I've ever known.
SpongeBob SquarePants, have you seen this snail? I was 9 years old when this episode came out, and I still vividly remember how I reacted to it the first time I watched it. It's such a memorable episode. SpongeBob gets preoccupied with a paddleball challenge and neglects to feed Gary. This causes Gary to run away, and he's found by an old lady who just calls herself Grandma. When SpongeBob realizes that Gary's gone, he feels awful and does everything he can to try and find him. Seeing how upset SpongeBob is at the loss of his pet is enough to bring a tear to your eye, but no, the episode also has that blasted song, which I love, but at the same time, it's the thing that made me lose it as a kid, and still to this day sometimes. I've never experienced a pet running away before, but I can imagine how terrible that is. Pets are more than just animals people keep around the house. They're our friends and members of our families. Seeing how much Gary's disappearance eats away at SpongeBob is just heartbreaking, but it's okay because in the end, Gary does come back. That's another moment that can get me crying, but at least they are tears of joy. I'll probably make a video ranking my favorite SpongeBob episodes at some point in the future, and I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up making the cut.
And now my heart is beating like the saddest metronome.
Rugrats in Paris, the movie. To tell you guys the truth, I could make a whole list like this consisting of nothing but Rugrats episodes and movies, but I decided to give the nod to the one that I can remember crying at first. There are a few moments that can trigger the waterworks, whether it be the mother-child dance at the beginning, the airplane ride that features a sad song, subliminal images of Chucky's mom and Chucky watching Dee Dee put Dill down for a nap, or even towards the end when Chucky and Kimmy dance with Kira and Chaz respectively. Of course, all of those scenes revolve around the fact that Chucky is sad about not having a mom, especially when everyone else does. His mom passed away when he was very little, and it's just been him and his dad since then. You can't help but feel for Chucky as he's just longing for a mom. Personally speaking, these scenes were hard for me to watch since I was a kid, but they've been even harder to watch over the past year or so. In November of 2019, my mom passed away, and while our relationship was complicated and she wasn't around as much as I may have liked her to be, it was still a devastating loss, and it's something I still think about, and I'm sure it'll stick with me for the rest of my life. If any of you have lost a parent as well, I'm sure you know what I mean. Losing a loved one in general is tough, but we all just have to remember that we can keep them in our hearts and in our thoughts. In Chucky's case though, he's just a little kid, so he doesn't completely grasp that concept. At least Chucky gets a happy ending when Chaz marries Kira, so Chucky gets her as his stepmom and Kimmy as his stepsister. Well, in the original series anyway. They won't be around in the reboot, but I'm not going off on a tangent about that. Let's just cherish how enjoyable Rugrats in Paris is, even when it's tugging at our heartstrings. A silent voice. I'll be blunt here. This movie messed me up. I didn't watch it until late last year, and I had heard that it was a tearjerker, but I was not expecting it to hit me as hard as it did. This is another one that deals with heavy topics. This movie touches on subjects like bullying, self-isolation, and even suicide. The movie follows Shoya Ishida, who bullied a deaf girl named Shoko Nishimiya who transferred into his class when they were younger. When the principal finds out and it's revealed that Shoko transferred out of the class, Shoya himself becomes the target of bullying. He becomes a social outcast, and when he's older and in high school, he meets Shoko again and spends the bulk of the movie trying to make amends with her. This whole movie tugs at the heartstrings, but there are two moments in particular that had me in tears. The first scene was just seeing all of the kids pick on Shoko. They were bullying her because of her hearing impairment, which, number one, is just messed up, and number two is something completely out of her control. I won't lie. I have said some things about people with disabilities when I was younger, and it's not something I'm proud of. A lot of people do stupid things when they're young and don't realize how wrong it is. But the important thing is to learn from your mistakes and grow as a person. That's exactly what Shoya tries to do in this movie, for the most part anyway. The second scene that got to me absolutely wrecked me. It takes place when Shoya is in the hospital and Shoko gets slapped around by Naoka Ueno, a longtime friend of Shoya. Then Shoko's mother gets involved and Shoya's mother has to break it up. Then Shoko apologizes to Shoya's mother for her son ending up in the hospital because of her. This scene had me sobbing. It was so powerful, and I wasn't expecting this type of delivery. I watched the English dub, of course, and unlike with the original Japanese voice cast, Shoko's voice actor in the English dub is actually deaf. To me, that made her performance feel much more genuine. I think that's what really got to me. It was such a moving performance and it caught me off guard. I tried not to give too much away here, so if you haven't seen this movie yet, I cannot recommend it enough. I will warn you though, you'll want to be prepared with plenty of tissues, because I'm sure you'll be crying at some of these scenes as well. My roommate is a cat. I know the tone of this video has been mostly depressing up to this point, so I wanted to end it on a lighter note. Everything else on this list has either been sad movies, shows, or episodes. Well, just because something makes me or anybody cry, it doesn't automatically mean it's sad. I will say that yes, there are some sad scenes in the show, but it's lighthearted for the most part. The main character, Subaru Mikazuki, deals with issues such as coping with the loss of his parents and learning to forgive himself for past mistakes. He tends to isolate himself and just focuses on his work as an author. However, he slowly starts to open up and lets more people into his life. It's all because of a stray cat that he takes in, mainly as inspiration for a novel. However, he names the cat Haru and he really starts to bond with her. We also see growth in Haru. She doesn't care for Subaru much at first, but over time she feels like she needs to protect him and make sure he eats. These two form an incredible bond and it feels natural to me. I've heard complaints that this isn't how a cat behaves, making the show inaccurate. To be honest, I don't really care about all that. Not only that, but not all cats act the same, so there's no definitive yes or no answer as to whether a cat will bond with its owner like this. It depends on the cat and the owner. Regardless, I think the bond we see between Subaru and Haru is beautiful and incredibly wholesome. Both of their lives drastically improved throughout the series, and it's great to see that. I mentioned this in my top 10 anime of the 2010s video, but I'll say it again here. I cried at just about every episode, both times I watched this anime in full. I didn't mention this in the aforementioned video, but I even find myself crying at the intro when I watch it by itself from time to time. I don't cry at the show because it's sad, because it's not all that sad, except for a few moments like I mentioned before. But the show is powerful in its emotional delivery. It's a beautiful and wholesome relationship between a pet and its owner. The story is just overwhelming, I can't help but cry, whether it's a happy scene, sad scene, or just a touching scene in general. To other people, this may just come off as a normal and even sappy slice of life series. To me, it's a masterpiece, and I don't throw that term around loosely. I'm not over-exaggerating when I say that My Roommate is a Cat has become one of my favorite anime of all time. It may be a simple concept, but it is effective. I love this show to death, and I can't think of anything I dislike about it, even though it's impossible for me to watch it without bawling by the end of every episode.
Please go away. I want to be alone.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. This was a difficult one for me to make, but I wanted to challenge myself and try out some new ideas, and I'm glad I did. Please give me some feedback in the comments. I'd love to know how you all felt about this concept. If you have any other cartoons, anime, or other animated works that you want me to talk about in the future, please let me know. After all, it's not my channel, it's our channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and feel free to check out my social media pages, audition for an outro, and join the official Cartoon Session Discord, the links for all of which are in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom. I am Mufasa, and thank you for watching Cartoon Obsession.